As promised in my last video, I bought more books, but this time, it's sci-fi. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So if you are new here, please like and subscribe and enjoy the content. I am referring, of course, to my last video right up here where I bought a bunch of fantasy books, and now this is part 2 of this book haul, which is entirely sci-fi and whatever Jurassic Park counts as. So I've been trying to get more into sci-fi, and eventually I will step into horror as well, but I wanted to mix in more sci-fi with my fantasy reading because up until now the only thing that I've read that is truly sci-fi is Red Rising, and that series is very light sci-fi. You are in space, you are in the future, you do go to different planets, you have, hovercrafts, rocket boots, stuff like that. But it's very much fantasy mixed with sci-fi. There's no calculations, there's no, realism when it comes to what would actually happen in space. It is just largely a fantasy sci-fi blend. So I'm trying to go full into sci-fi, and here's what I got. So, starting with what is a lot of people's favorite sci-fi of all time, that would be Ender's Game. So humanity is at war with what are called the Buggers, which is just an alien civilization, alien race that they are at war with, and they train young kids to be combat generals, basically training kids, indoctrinating them into a military to battle the Buggers. So that in itself, I've heard similar stories to that. It sounds like a super cool premise. I honestly don't know a lot about Ender's Game other than the main character's name is Ender, and he's fighting aliens, and I believe he's supposed to be some insanely intelligent kid. So I'm definitely interested in seeing why he's so smart, or why he becomes this crazy good general that I believe he becomes in this story. Again, I don't know anything beyond that. I don't know anything about the rest of the series. I don't even know if it's good or not. Everyone says Ender's Game. I always thought it was a standalone. I didn't even know that there were more books to it. So if I enjoy Ender's Game enough, I will check out at least one of the sequels. Drop in the comments down below if you've read any of them past Ender's Game, and if you like it or hate it. I honestly don't know anything about it. And next up, I have what is, according to Huffington Post, delightful. The Grown-Ups Harry Potter. If you didn't already know what I'm talking about, of course, it's Ready Player One, Harry Potter for grown-ups, apparently. Or Willy Wonka meets the Matrix. I'm just going to go ahead and disregard both of those comments. But Ready Player One, again, another one that got made into a movie. As I understand it, this is a gigantic love letter to the 80s, all things 80s, pop culture, video games, music, you name it. You basically plug into this VR simulation, and whatever happens, happens. I don't actually know the story of this either. I've seen the trailers for the movie, though, and I heard it wasn't that good. I'm assuming the book is better. I went ahead and picked this up so I can finally see what all the hype was about. This book has been hyped to no end. Everybody talks about it, says how much fun it is. If you love the 80s, you're going to love it. I was born in '90. I didn't grow up in the 80s, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be very familiar with everything that's referenced in this book. But it's going to be a nice lighter read. It's going to be a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And anything with VR, video games, it's right up my alley, so I anticipate a lot of super cool just things that I would probably imagine as a child happening in this when you're plugging into a VR simulation, especially as a young character, so that is going to be right up my alley. Also, a quick note, I'm sure there's much better cover art than this. This, I think, is probably based on the movie. And as you can see, my favorite thing in the world, multiple fake stickers that you can't get rid of. So instead of just putting Ernest Cline on there, you made it a sticker. And then, just to let you know, now a major motion picture with Steven Spielberg. And I guess they just, do they get paid by, the inch for how much crap they put on these books? Because there's just a lot of stuff here, man. So now next up, with what is very much a hard sci-fi, and now has also been turned into a Netflix series, Amazon series, that would be The Expanse. And it wouldn't be a good book cover without George R.R. Martin's name on it. The Expanse, again, this is another one that I don't really know too much about, outside of, obviously, it's sci-fi, it's very far in the future. We've colonized multiple different planets and worlds, galaxies, things like that. So you know what, let me just read the back of the book instead of being a dummy. So I'm assuming after reading the back of the book that George R.R. Martin has mentioned, because this sounds like space politics and a lot of backstabbing and things that people are willing to kill for to control civilization. So that's super awesome. This is very much hard sci-fi though, from what I understand, whereas Red Rising is more fantasy and super light on the sci-fi. It's just like, all right, this is space, they're using ships, like just go with it. This, I believe, has a lot more technical aspects to it, where like how would things actually work in this situation. So that's going to be totally different than anything that I'm used to. And also this is a very long series of thick books. So if I like this, I will of course be buying all of them. Not at once, because I'm not that much of a crazy person, but I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm starting to notice a theme here. We got Orson Scott Card, Ernest Cline, James A. Corey. It's possible that I just went up and down the sci-fi section by author last name and picked a bunch of C's. Who knows? Now the one non-C author that I have is Scalzi and Old Man's War. So Old Man's War, I saw, was a Hugo Award winner. It is hyped as one of the best starting things to get you into sci-fi, one of the, you know, older classic sci-fi that everybody should read kind of thing. And now after reading the blurb on the back of the book, I understand why it's called Old Man's War. That is, of course, because old men go to war. So basically humanity is at war with aliens, and there are only a few planets left that you can actually live on. And society wants to send humanity's oldest and most knowledgeable people into battle and to colonize these planets that they take over and rebuild civilization there. They don't want young people, they want people to carry the knowledge of the civilization and prop it up on new planets. So take over an alien planet, send a bunch of old guys, they start society over, start governments, things like that. So this is very much an old man's game. They don't want the young kids, they don't want all these little rascals running around starting civilizations on planets because they don't know anything. They want the old guys. That's the extent of my knowledge on that book, but it sounds like having the old men solve our problems and carry on society. So I thought it was pretty safe to mostly go through what I found were highly rated sci-fi stories that I've seen recommended a lot, or they're on, you know, top 10, top 100 lists of best sci-fi. And I ended up finding a lot of Michael Crichton at the Books A Million that I went to. And I picked up Dragon Teeth, and I had no idea what this book was. So this says, two monomaniacal paleontologists pillage the Wild West, hunting for dinosaur fossils while surveilling, deceiving, and sabotaging each other in a rivalry that will come to be known as the Bone Wars. I have no idea what to expect out of that. Warring paleontologists during the Bone Wars. I have no idea. But it sounds cool. The next book I think is very fitting for 2020 because it talks about a global pandemic that could take over the world. And that would be The Andromeda Strain by Michael Crichton. And this as well. So this is the 50th anniversary edition. Looks pretty cool. I love the artwork. I love the cover. There's like a top secret base, I guess, that all these scientists, all these like top scientists around the world go to, and they're trying to contain whatever the strain is. Obviously, that's going to get out and wreak havoc on the planet. So, sounds familiar? I know I don't have a lot of insight to these books, but that's kind of the point because I'm just getting into sci-fi reading, and I'm just really excited to pick up a bunch of stuff that I've never read before, that isn't fantasy, that is totally, you know, out of the realm of what I normally read, because as much as science fiction interests me and I've seen in movies, I've never actually read a whole lot of it. So I'm definitely excited to get through these, and most of them are somewhat shorter, so they'll be good to start sprinkling them in between all these fat fantasy epics that I'm reading. So I'm definitely looking forward to all of these. And then speaking of sci-fi that I don't actually know is technically sci-fi, Jurassic Park. I got this awesome looking hardcover, and I couldn't pass it up. It looks super cool. It's like a leathery kind of feel to it. Everybody knows about Jurassic Park. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Everybody has seen it probably by now. I've never actually read the book, and to be honest, for a long time I didn't even know it was a book. I assume there's a lot that changed from book to movie adaptation. I don't really know what to expect as far as like what is different, but it's Jurassic Park. I mean, it's a fantastic movie, still holds up to this day. But the book is really interesting because I love going to all these that like I've seen movies of, as a kid or growing up, and then I find out later as an adult that it was a book. I'm really interested to see the writing behind that creation, because obviously the movie was very much Spielberg's adaptation and vision for that movie, and I want to see what Crichton wrote, because I mean, this book of course has been hyped. It's Jurassic Park. Like, that's probably going to be fantastic. So I might have to bump that up and read it soon. But I mean, honestly, all these sound so cool. I don't know what I'm going to read next, honestly. There's so many good sci-fi books that I haven't bought, obviously. This is just where I'm starting. I'm going to slowly build where Pierce Brown is down there by himself, right there. I'm going to build that up. That's going to have all kinds of sci-fi stuff. I'm going to be expanding on that a lot. And I am still missing horror, so that will be coming in a couple of months. Because October, I think I'm going to buy a bunch of horror books. So again, if you have any other sci-fi recommendations, please leave them down in the comments below. If you have any horror recommendations, I would love to hear those as well. Not just It. I don't think I'm going to start with It, because it's this big or something insane. I've heard a lot of like classics, Dracula, things like that are really good to start with, so I'll probably pick up some of those, some H.P. Lovecraft, some shorter stories, really dip my feet in there. So yeah, that wraps up all of the books now that I bought in July, except for the Greatcoats, which I ordered from some random website almost a month ago, and I'm starting to think they're not going to show up. So I'm just going to read it on Kindle. But these are all the sci-fi books, and again, whatever Jurassic Park and Dragon Teeth count as. I don't know if it's technically sci-fi or not. It doesn't seem like it. So I guess just fiction, shall we? Yeah, we're going with fiction. So on top of any recommendations that you all might have, let me know if you think one of these I should start with. I'm currently reading Grave Peril in the Dresden Files, and then probably stepping back into the Wheel of Time, but I do want to mix in at least one of these sci-fi books in the near future, so possibly right after Dresden. So if you have a preference on where I should start, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching. I hope you subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content. Hit the bell notification so you are reminded when these videos drop. And until next time, everybody, keep reading.